Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The fork was still spinning on the floor when she stepped over it like it wasn't even there. She didn't ask why I'd dropped it. She didn't ask why I'd cooked dinner for the third night in a row. She didn't ask anything. She just walked past me. Same blank expression, same locked phone in her hand, and disappeared into the bathroom. The door clicked shut. Water running. The usual routine. Except this time, I stood there holding a burning pan with pasta already hardening against the edges, and I realized. This wasn't routine. This was erosion. 32 days. That's how long it had been since she last looked me in the eyes. Not accidentally, not while glancing past me or checking her reflection behind my shoulder. I mean, really looked. The way you look at someone you live with, someone you once promised things to, someone who still folds your laundry even after you've stopped saying thank you. She didn't yell. She didn't fight. She just vanished into silence like it was a warm blanket and I was the cold. So I started counting things. How many times she said my name in a week. How often she turned away before I finished a sentence. How long she spent typing to someone else while claiming she needed space. You know what hurt most? She kept laughing, just not in front of me. The first time I heard it, I smiled. Thought maybe she was watching some old sitcom on her phone. But the second time, the way her voice dropped, the flirty, "you're awful" whisper I hadn't heard in years, that's when I stopped listening. Because I already knew, deep down, somewhere beneath the excuses and broken dinner forks, she wasn't tired. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was just gone. And I was still setting the table like it mattered. That night I didn't sleep. Not because of a fight, we didn't have those anymore. But because I kept hearing her voice from behind the bathroom door. Whispering, giggling, pausing, and then whispering again. I stood there like an idiot, ear tilted toward the wood, heart trying to keep up with my breath. I wasn't trying to catch her. I already knew. I was just hoping to hear something. Anything that could make it less real. I wanted to be wrong. Instead, I heard her say, "You make me feel like I used to feel." That sentence hit me harder than any confession ever could. I backed away, stepped over the half-eaten takeout she left on the counter, and went to bed alone again. The next morning, she came out like nothing happened. Hair wrapped in a towel, scrolling through her phone, sipping coffee from my mug. The one with the chipped lip she used to say reminded her of our first road trip. No apology, no tension, just a perfectly performed act of detachment. I followed her movements like I was watching someone else's life. A stranger walking through my kitchen wearing my memories like clothes that didn't fit her anymore. Then she smiled. Not at me, at her phone. A full, teeth showing, eyes softening kind of smile I hadn't seen in over a year. I think I forgot how beautiful it was, and how painful it could be when it wasn't meant for you. I asked her softly if she wanted to talk. She blinked, finally noticing me. Talk about what? She asked, genuinely confused, as if there was nothing worth discussing. That moment broke something in me, not like glass, but like wet paper. Slow, tearing, weak. I went to the closet and took down the duffel bag I hadn't touched since our last vacation. She didn't ask why. She didn't follow me. She just went back to texting. Legs curled under her on the couch like we were strangers passing time in the same waiting room. I didn't pack much. Just enough to disappear quietly. I didn't even leave a note this time. I figured if she couldn't hear me when I was shouting inside, she wouldn't read a piece of paper either. But before I walked out the door, I did one last stupid thing. I turned around, hoping, praying, that she'd look up. Just once. Just enough to stop me. She didn't. I didn't slam the door. I closed it like I was afraid to wake a sleeping ghost. The morning air hit my face and felt colder than I expected. Like the world already knew what I was too afraid to admit. That everything I had built was now behind me, and none of it would come chasing after me. I didn't have a plan. No destination. No dramatic playlist queued up. No cinematic moment waiting at the edge of town. I just drove. For hours. Through intersections I didn't recognize. Past towns I'd never heard of. All while trying to remember when exactly my marriage stopped being real and turned into a polite arrangement between strangers. I eventually landed in an old motel with faded green numbers and curtains that smelled like burned coffee. The clerk didn't ask questions. I didn't offer explanations. I sat on the stiff mattress, surrounded by peeling wallpaper and unfamiliar silence, and stared at my phone for what felt like forever. Her name stared back at me. Lila. No missed calls, no texts, no "where are you?" or "come home." Just that blank screen reflecting exactly what I felt. Still, I opened the photo gallery. I knew it would hurt. I knew it was pathetic. But I scrolled anyway, through images of us at the lake, grinning with wind in our hair. Her sunburned cheeks, her sleepy smile holding a mug I bought her in Vermont. I kept waiting for those images to feel fake, like they belonged to someone else. But they didn't. They were mine. And maybe that's what made it worse. Because they proved something I wasn't ready to face. We had been happy once. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the closeness we used to share. I kept scrolling and found something odd. A screenshot she had taken. Not of us, but of a hotel confirmation. Dated 3 weeks ago. My heart stuttered. I zoomed in. The name of a boutique hotel 2 towns over. A king suite. 2 guests. My hand started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I never asked her about this trip. She never told me, but she had saved it. Not in a secret folder, not buried in some hidden app, just sitting there in the open like she didn't care if I saw it. Or maybe, like she wanted me to. Like this was her version of a goodbye. Not with words, but with digital leftovers I was supposed to find and break over. I stared at that screenshot until the screen dimmed. Like even my phone was tired of me. I realized then, she hadn't just ignored me. She'd erased me, but left behind the pieces sharp enough to cut. The motel room began to rot around me. Not literally, but emotionally, like it had soaked up every second of silence and guilt I dragged in with me. I hadn't eaten in over a day, hadn't changed clothes since I left, hadn't answered any of the 3 texts from my boss asking if I was okay. I didn't respond to anyone because I wasn't okay. I was unraveling in slow motion, and no one noticed because I was so good at pretending. I told myself I just needed closure, not to go back, but to see things for what they were. No more denial. No more "maybe it's not what I think." So I drove. Back to our city, but not to our home. To that boutique hotel from the screenshot. Took me an hour to work up the courage just to park across the street. I sat in my car like some awkward private investigator with sweaty palms and a twitch in my jaw. I didn't even know what I was waiting for until I saw her. She walked out the front doors like she owned the pavement. Same coat I'd bought her last Christmas. Same boots she once said were only for special occasions. She wasn't alone. He came out 2 steps behind her, tall, polished, with that casually arrogant walk of a man who's never been told no. I didn't recognize him, but he sure recognized her. The way he touched her lower back like it was second nature. The way she smiled up at him without hesitation. It told me everything I hadn't been ready to accept. She wasn't struggling. She wasn't confused. She had replaced me. I ducked lower in the car, heart thudding so loud I was sure someone could hear it. Could have left right then, but my body didn't move. I watched them laugh. I watched her hand slide into his. I watched as she leaned in and kissed him like I didn't exist. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. It was watching someone rewrite the ending of a book you helped write. And then she did the thing that finally broke me. She reached into her purse, pulled out a familiar necklace, and clipped it around her neck. My anniversary gift. The one she said she lost 2 years ago. She didn't lose it. She saved it. For him. I drove off without turning the heat on, because I needed to feel the cold to stay conscious. I needed the sting to remind me I was still here, still breathing, still painfully awake in a life I no longer recognized. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She'd fallen into something else entirely. And I had just watched it happen in real time, invisible, uninvited, and completely replaced. I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't go back home either. I just drove, letting the streetlights blur into lines and the city fade into the rearview until the highway swallowed me whole. I had nowhere to be and even less of myself to bring there. I remember thinking, this is what a ghost must feel like. wandering, half-present, watching the world go on as if you were never part of it. Somewhere past midnight, I pulled over at a rest stop and sat under a flickering light, the cold biting through my sleeves. I was too tired to cry, too numb to scream. Instead, I scrolled through our old messages, not hers, mine. Years of texts I'd sent her. Memes, grocery lists, little I love yous. Notes saying, "Don't forget your umbrella," or "Dinner's in the oven." Most had no reply, just one-sided footprints in a conversation we both abandoned long ago. That's when I remembered something. Before I left the house, I had swapped out the old Wi-Fi router. I'd been planning to upgrade it for weeks. It was dumb timing, I did it almost out of habit, but it meant something now. Because that old router? I hadn't wiped it. I had never factory reset it. Which meant every device connected, every login, every trace of data, was still sitting in that black plastic box in the hall closet. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe proof. Maybe closure. Maybe something that would let me hate her properly instead of blaming myself. I just knew I couldn't move forward until I stopped pretending I didn't care what really happened. So the next day, when I knew she'd be at work, or worse, with him, I went back. Not for her. For the truth. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Colder. Like it had learned to live without me already. I didn't stay long. I grabbed the router, avoided looking at the photos still hanging by the stairs, and left without touching anything else. I spent hours at a coffee shop using software I barely understood to extract data. Most of it was junk. Old passwords, login logs, random connection history. But then I found a pattern. A device name I didn't recognize. A laptop that had connected multiple times late at night, always after midnight. The IPs pointed to a private messaging server, encrypted, hidden behind layers most people wouldn't bother trying to access. But I did, because I needed something real. And when I finally cracked it open, I didn't find sexts. I didn't find love notes. I found videos. Dozens of them. All sent from her phone. But none of them had me in them. The first video didn't even have sound. Just shaky footage of her sitting at a dimly lit bar, facing the camera with that tilted smile she used to save for me. She looked younger somehow, more alive than I'd seen her in years. Laughing, sipping something from a short glass, running her fingers along the rim like it was part of a private performance. But what froze me wasn't her expression. It was the hand that slid into frame from the left, gently brushing her knee under the table. She didn't flinch. She leaned in, smiled deeper. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't ashamed. She was comfortable. The second video had audio, and I wished to God it hadn't. They were in what looked like a hotel room, the same rustic brick wall I recognized from the boutique hotel's website. She wasn't just cheating. She was rehearsing lines. Literally. They were laughing about me, about how I never noticed a thing, about how he thinks if he just folds more laundry, I'll fall back in love with him. My name wasn't even said. I was just a role in their jokes, some clueless extra in the background of their affair. I felt physically ill, but I kept watching, not out of some twisted masochism, but because I needed to finish it. I needed the pain to match the silence I'd lived in for so long. The third video started with her holding the phone herself. She was in our bedroom. Our sheets. The same ones I used to wrap around her after Sunday morning pancakes. She panned the camera across the bed and whispered, "You'll be here next time, right?" That broke me in a way I can't explain. Because it wasn't the act, it was the invitation. She had turned our home into a waiting room for him. I slammed my laptop shut so hard it startled the guy at the next table. I didn't apologize. I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from realization. She hadn't fallen in love with someone else. She had vanished from the inside out and left a mannequin in her place. One that still wore my ring, still used my last name, still smiled in family photos. But that woman, that version of her in the videos, I didn't know her. And I was starting to accept that maybe I never really did. I drove again that night, no music, no GPS. Just the heavy hum of betrayal in my ears and the growing echo of a question I couldn't answer. How long had she been gone before I even noticed? The date snuck up on me like a bad joke. October 14th. Our wedding anniversary. I hadn't said it out loud, hadn't written it down, hadn't circled it on any calendar, but my body remembered. I woke up with that pit in my chest that used to be excitement. The same nervous energy I used to get when I planned something stupidly romantic. Like the year I rented a rooftop just to watch planes take off while we ate cheap takeout and shared a single slice of cheesecake. That version of us felt like a hallucination now. Still, some self-destructive part of me decided to check her social media. I hadn't in weeks. I expected nothing. Maybe silence. Or worse, a soft quote about growth or healing. But what I saw nearly made me drop my phone. She had posted a photo. It was of a wine glass, clinking against another. A caption below it read, "To new beginnings with someone who makes silence feel like peace instead of punishment." I stared at that sentence until the words lost meaning. My mouth went dry. I reread it 3 times, then a 4th. That was directed at me. There was no mistaking it. It was a sentence tailor-made to hurt, wrapped in faux poetry and dipped in cruelty. It wasn't just about him. It was about me, the man she had spent years with, now reduced to a metaphor for emotional noise. I closed the app and sat in the driver's seat of my car, parked outside the storage unit where I'd been crashing lately because hotels were bleeding my bank account dry. I wanted to scream, but there wasn't enough energy left. I was too tired for rage. All that remained was a weird kind of clarity. She didn't just move on. She broadcasted it. She turned her betrayal into a brand, into a story she could control. Meanwhile, I was living in the shadows of it, feeding on scraps of self-worth, hiding from the people who used to call me strong. But here's the thing, even shattered people hit a wall. Mine came when I found a package outside the storage unit that night. No name on it. Just a plain brown box with my old address crossed out and this one written in her handwriting. Inside, the watch I gave her on our 5th anniversary. The one engraved with "No matter how late you are, I'll wait." It was shattered. Not broken in transit, smashed deliberately. The glass cracked, the hands frozen at 11:47. No note. No explanation. Just one final message disguised as a return. I sat there for an hour staring at that useless, broken watch, and I swear it ticked louder than any silence between us ever had. Because I finally got it. She didn't want me to forget. She wanted me to know that she chose this ending, that it wasn't accidental, that even time didn't belong to us anymore. I didn't respond to the shattered watch. Not with a text. Not with anger. Not with another long message she'd never read. I just picked up the broken pieces, wrapped them in an old hoodie, and threw them into the dumpster behind the storage unit. That moment didn't feel like an ending. It felt like permission. Permission to stop waiting. To stop hoping for a version of her that no longer existed. To stop building my identity around someone who had long since stopped seeing me as a person. I took the next few weeks in silence, but this time it was my silence. Not hers. No tension. No guessing games. I started eating again. Slowly at first. I started walking every morning before the sun came up, just to remember what fresh air felt like without the weight of her absence clinging to it. I even started answering calls from people I'd been avoiding, the ones who used to ask, "Are you okay?" and get nothing but a lie in return. Then one day, I passed a bookstore downtown. One she used to love, but hadn't set foot in for years. I walked in on a whim and left with 3 used paperbacks and a notebook. I didn't know what I was writing at first. Just fragments, thoughts, pieces of memories I didn't want to rot in my head. But slowly, they turned into something else. Something mine. The notebook filled faster than I expected. It didn't make me forget her. It didn't undo what she did. But it reminded me I could still create something that wasn't about her. Something that wasn't born from pain. Last week, I got approved for a tiny apartment above a cafe. It's quiet, peaceful, no ghosts, no cold shoulders. Just a window with too much sunlight and a key that fits in my hand like it's always belonged there. Sometimes I still hear her laugh in my memory. Sometimes I still wonder what I did wrong. But those thoughts don't own me anymore. I don't chase the answers. I live in the questions. And that, weirdly, is enough. So if you've ever loved someone who forgot how to see you, or stayed longer than you should have hoping they'd turn around, let this be your sign. You don't need a dramatic exit. You just need a beginning, even if it starts in silence. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. Tell us in the comments, what moment from this story shocked you the most or hit you personally? And remember, no matter how loud the silence feels, you're not alone.